Streaming bandwidth provided by worship channels. Live streaming made simple. Visit them online at worshipchannels.com. On today's Tech Help for Churches, Pinterest for Churches. Welcome everyone to another episode of Tech Help for Churches. My name is Paul Allen Clifford. I'm your host, and I'd like you to join in on the conversation here by heading over to churchtechcast.com and join the live chat if you're watching on Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. That's when this show is shot live each and every week. There are other shows in the churchtechcast.com stable, if you want to think of it that way, so you can join the rest of those at various times during the week. If you couldn't make it for the live show, don't worry, you can download the podcast by going to techhelpforchurches.trinitydigitalmedia.com and subscribing there, or look us up in iTunes, Tech Help for Churches. By the way, speaking of iTunes, if you already are subscribed in iTunes, it would be very helpful if you go in, write a review, give us 5 stars, that kind of thing. Just helpful. It helps on the visibility side of things, so anyone that can do that would be greatly appreciated. You might not know that you can subscribe to this show and receive it automatically on your computer every time that a new show is made, or automatically on your phone. There is a podcasting app on the iPhone. You can also get the similar apps like Downcast on Android, so feel free to do that. Also, if you have any questions, comments, or snide remarks, feel free to email Paul at trinitydigitalmedia.com or leave me a voicemail, 1-877-763-3246. That's also 1-877-POD-ECHO, and you can interact with this podcast. So, let's talk about Pinterest, shall we? Pinterest has kind of a reputation, and I can see where you get it, of being a place where you get kind of decorating ideas for new hairstyles, kind of the same stereotypical information, but it doesn't have to be that way. You see, Pinterest is a very visual, kind of social bookmarking service. If you want to think of it that way, that's really what it is. So, how can a church help other people by using Pinterest? Well, here's what I would do. I would start by creating engaging graphics. That's probably the number one thing. Now, on Pinterest, for whatever reason, graphics with people's faces and graphics that are wider don't do as well as graphics that are taller and don't include people's faces. So keep that in mind. There are quite a lot of blanking on what they're called. Infographics. Quite a lot of infographics on Pinterest, and part of the reason why they're so successful is because they're very long. So they can be 3 or 4 times longer than you'd normally see in like an 8x10 style image. So that's one thing. Another thing is you can post blog posts, podcast, audio, video files, downloadable files, and videos on Pinterest. Not a lot of people know that. So videos, especially those on YouTube, you can just put directly and have a link there. One thing that you want to do is you want to have a unique visual presentation for each and every pin that you create. This is something that I need to work on more myself because I use the same album art for every podcast and things like that, and it's less engaging than perhaps it could be. So that's probably the next thing that I would recommend is having unique visual content. A lot of people say it's helpful to put text on top of your images. I think that's true. You can go overboard with this, but there's kind of this online thing called a meme, and there's photographic memes. A meme in general is just something that's in the psyche of people online. So viral videos are kind of a type of meme. Then there's things like Grumpy Cat and just all these pictures where someone writes something on top of the picture kind of to be funny. That's more what we need to think about here with it when it comes to Pinterest. Basically, you want to make something that if you found it, you would want to share it, because that's how you'll grow the audience. So I would love for churches to be, I guess, the hub of interesting, relevant content. I'm really tired of seeing on Facebook, for example, all the here's something of dubious theological quality, followed by, if you love Jesus, you'll repost this. Look, I get that you want your message to spread. I get that. But that's not right. It's just wrong, actually, to say, if you love Jesus, you'll repost this. That's judgmental. Quit it. Quit it. If you see something like that, please ignore it, because it doesn't show God's love. It doesn't show who Jesus really is. It shows I can't get my message out any other way than guilt. And that's not at all what the gospel is about. Remember, if it's not good news, it's not the gospel, because the early church thought it was such good news, they called it good news. Pet peeve, stepping off my soapbox right now. But remember that as you're on Pinterest. What you want to do is you want to be engaging. You want to draw people in, not push them away. Not use guilt and manipulation, but love and humor. That's the kind of thing you want to do on Pinterest. Make stuff that people want to share. I think once you do that, you'll find that it just spreads naturally. If it's something that people want to share, they will want to share it. See how that works? If it's not, go back to the drawing board and work a little bit harder. There's nothing wrong with refining your process, getting better at your art. So that's something you could absolutely do. Remember, the visual matters a lot on Pinterest. Think of whatever image you put with other content, not as an in and of itself. So memes are kind of an in and of themselves, but think of them as a means towards the end of what your other content is saying. So if your pastor has a weekly blog post, or if you have a weekly blog post and you're a pastor, for example, what image can you choose to go with that blog post that will draw people in, that will be engaging? Post that on Pinterest. If you make videos from time to time, what frame in the video will draw people's attention? Make sure that that is the thumbnail that you post on Pinterest. If you have audio content, what visual element can you put with that audio content where people will say, wonder what this is about, or this looks funny, or I always wondered what that was about. Now, see, one of the great things about Pinterest, and this is why I need to get better at it even myself, is that it's a place where people go and leave. Now, granted, they might have in one window Pinterest and just be caught in just a looking through boards kind of momentum. But a lot of times they'll click on those boards and open them up in a new tab or a new window, and then they will go to that place. So that's the value here. Unlike Facebook, where someone reads your post and then goes back to the updates from their friends, or unlike Twitter, where they're not as likely to click on the link unless there's some good reason to click on it. Pinterest, the whole reason is to click on it. So that can drive quite a lot of traffic if you use it right. Unfortunately, if you're not really into it, you might think, well, every Saturday I'll just put up all my links. Well, like Twitter, it's a constantly flowing stream. So all your links on Saturday will probably be buried Sunday and definitely be buried Monday, leaving 5 more days of nothing from you. It would be much better to take 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week, maybe 7 if you've got a team so that you can rotate. I don't want anyone going at something full bore 7 days a week. But taking 5 minutes a day to post something at different times so that it hits different people. Now there are shared boards. So a board is kind of a group of similar pins. That's what the bookmarks on Pinterest are called. So obviously you'll want to create boards that contain the most interesting stuff that you make, but also create boards that share interesting stuff that you find, so as not to violate Pinterest terms of service and not to be one of those people that all they do is advertise either. With that said, there are shared boards, as I mentioned earlier, and so you can have multiple people collaborating on a single board. So you could collaborate on a board with a sister church in a different city. You could collaborate on a board that had something to do with part of what your mission as a church is. And as you're doing that, you will engage with more and more people, because all the audience for the other person who is sharing the board with you will see all the stuff that you do, and if they like it and it's engaging, they'll start to follow you as well. So that's another strategy for getting involved. I find that Pinterest is in some ways a little like Twitter, that as you follow people, they'll follow you back. So that's another way to get engagement. But remember, not just to make it a broadcast platform. Interact. This is social media. This isn't broadcast media. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make, is they just don't interact. One thing that I will mention, there are 2 different types of accounts. And happily you can go from the basic personal account to a corporate or business style account. So if you started as Reverend Jones, you can make that into First Church of the Nazarene Pinterest account. And as you're doing that, you'd find that you have some additional abilities that you didn't have before. So if it's a personal account, you really don't care about analytics or any of that stuff. But as a corporate account, you do. You'd like to know where is all the interest going so that you can feed that and grow it. So if you find that games that your children's pastor pins as part of your church's account get a lot of traction, you want to put more into that so that you get even more traction. If you find that it's safe things for teens to do, you want to put more into that. So again, you gain more traction. So that's one of the other pieces of the puzzle of Pinterest, is that you can change a personal account into a business account and get these analytics. I think that we're still in a little bit of the phase where there's a lot of mystery to Pinterest. You know, I've figured out Twitter pretty much, no problem. I'm well on my way on Google+. Pinterest, I'm starting to understand. But that's the thing about social media. Each social media has its own personality, its own different quirks that you need to understand to get the most out of it. So I'd suggest that that's exactly what you do, and you use this as yet another tool in your tool belt to go out and change eternity. Until next time, I'm Paul Allen Clifford with TrinityDigitalMedia.com.